Hello, everyone out there. Gabe Elton here from Austin Rare Coin and Bullion with my maiden voyage on Charlie McGrath's Wide Awake News radio show on the one and only Rinse Radio Network. I wanted to say hello to everyone, and hopefully we'll have some callers and questions tonight. Feel free to call the Rinse Radio Network. I'd love to get you on here. One thing that I wanted to do is introduce Austin Rare Coins and kind of give you guys an idea of what we do here, how I ended up actually hosting a show here with Charlie, and what we do as a company. Austin Rare Coins was founded back in 1989, so we've been around for 25 years, a lot longer than some of the, for lack of a better word, better known companies out there that you might have heard about, or you might be buying from, or you might be talking to, or you might have seen on the web. We were here before most of those guys, and so we carry with us a little bit of knowledge and information that you might not find from other coin companies. And what we try to do is give you a hands-on approach to kind of direct you and guide you into the portfolio that will get you where you're trying to be. And every recommendation is different for everyone. It's not the same. It's not a blanket recommendation for everyone that we talk to. People's desires are different. Their situations are different. And what we try to do is bridge the gap between the neighborhood coin store and the big box stores like Walmart. And what we try to do is take you by the hand and kind of lead you into an area that you might not have known about. And normally whenever you start an investment, the best thing to do is to have all the information available so that you can make the best decision to help get you where you want to be. And that's really what we try to do here at Austin Coins. I'm going to start covering the news. The news that we've been seeing recently that we're going to cover here on the air is 30 days ago here at Austin Rare Coins, we sent out a report. It was called The Beginning of the End of the U.S. Dollar. And this is one of the reasons why I'm having this show is we would like to have more people visit our website. You can visit us at austincoins.com. And there you can sign up for our quarterly newsletters as well as our reports and timely information that we try to send out. And one in particular that I think we were right on cue is we sent out 1 month ago on March 26th a report entitled, "Is this the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar?" And there we were talking about the different aspects going on around the world that is causing the world, not just Russia that you've been hearing about lately, or not just China, but the entire world to move away from U.S. dollars. And the funny thing is when we sent this email out, we have several large stockbrokers that do business with us, and they send us a lot of clients. And several clients that read our information actually got quite alarmed by it and contacted their broker. Well, most of these guys, unfortunately, spend a little bit too much time in school, and they have this opinion of the world that's very different than what your opinion of the world might be or my opinion of the world might be. They tend to think that things are okay and things are improving. And who cares if Russia is isolated, because it's not as if we're going to accept money in rubles. Well, the problem is, as I pointed out, the rest of the world together doesn't need us anymore. You've got a country like China who, together with India, definitely has a larger economy than us. And they've got more people just between India and China than the rest of the world combined, basically. Well, at least North America and Europe. And another point that I made in there is that China had passed the United States as being the world's largest economy. Well, of course, some of these guys who believe that everything's hunky-dory and want to keep their clients' money in stocks had a problem with that. They said there's no way that the Chinese economy is larger than the U.S. economy. And I didn't just make up that term. I happen to be the one that wrote the report. I had read it several years back, and there's an economist who was doing a study based on purchasing power parity. And what that basically means is that goods and services denominated in the yuan is much cheaper than goods and services here in the United States, and therefore GDP based on purchasing power, China surpassed the United States in 2010. Of course, some of these guys had problems with that and claimed, well, that can't be true. The U.S. economy has a GDP of 15 trillion. The Chinese economy has a GDP of 8 trillion. There's no way that the Chinese economy is larger than ours. Well, I don't know if any of you saw on the news today, but the Financial Times, it seems that they've officially announced for all those people who have a problem with China being the world's largest economy in the world. Well, unfortunately, they're not going to sleep very well tonight because the mainstream news just today admitted that the Chinese economy, for the first time since the 1800s, excuse me, that's not the case, but for the first time ever, China is the largest economy in the world. And the reason why that's important is because the rest of the world caters to the world's largest economy. I saw several years ago a professor, I believe it was from Harvard, did a YouTube video, and in the video he was saying that our world here in the United States is never going to be the same, especially not the same as it was as we were growing up. And the reason for that, he said, is because the Chinese, well, not just Chinese, but Asia in particular, their economies would surpass the United States. And growing up, all of our lives, the rest of the world has revolved around the United States. The reason why they revolved around the United States is because the United States had the world's largest economy. And everyone woke up every morning to serve us. And that's the way that it was basically throughout most of my life as well. And he has about 20 years on me, so as most of his life. And he says the world that our children and grandchildren grow up in here in the United States will be vastly different because we will be waking up every morning to serve Asia, because Asia will be the epicenter of the global economy. Well, that has been announced today. And you start seeing these developments, and going back to the Ukraine, where we set up a scenario where we are forcing Putin's hand. We are forcing China and Russia to do business together. We're forcing China and Iran to do business with each other, China and Venezuela, China and Brazil, China and India. And let me tell you, all of those countries together, and what you have is a world economic powerhouse where Europe and the United States is no longer needed. And that is a huge and important development. And it's not alarmist to say it because it's happening right here in front of me. That, by the way, like I said, is from the Financial Times. In fact, another important article that broke is that, and this is in Time, a Time Life story, Time magazine. The title of the story is U.S. Sanctions Push Russia Towards His Dream of a New Financial System. And basically in the article, it sounds more alarmist almost than the email that we sent out on March 26th. And by the way, this is another story that just broke today. And the title of this story is U.S. Sanctions Push Putin Towards His Dream of a New Financial System. And I'll read that one again. U.S. sanctions push Putin towards his dream of a new financial system. And basically it goes through and talks about, sort of like the story that I just told you about the Harvard professor. Putin's entire life has been dominated by a world that revolves around the United States and uses the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. He has been trying to break that dominance for some time. And isn't it ironic that we are helping him in that endeavor with these sanctions that isolate Russia? It is basically, he's tired of a world that's dominated by the U.S. And through actions, he's set up a national payment system over there in Russia that's going to bypass the Visa and MasterCard system. The reason why that's important is because Visa and MasterCard are pretty much accepted all over the world, but the payments have to be settled in U.S. dollars, even if you're in Russia. And it's not a huge leap of the imagination to say, at what point are these guys going to say, why do we do business that way? Because this is our country, and they've set up a national payment system now that sort of bypasses the dominance of Visa and MasterCard, where those payments are settled in rubles. That's extremely important. As soon as the news broke that there would be sanctions, Russia started dumping U.S. treasuries, just like they said. And this is something that I've been talking about from the very beginning, because Russia's defense minister came out and said if there were ever sanctions, that it would be a boomerang effect that would come back to the United States, and it would end up hurting us more than it hurt Russia. And that is starting to be true, and that is exactly what they're doing through their actions. Now, I think the most important development, although there are many, as far as the economic situation goes in Russia, is that they've set up a new commodity-backed exchange. So why is this important? Well, Russia is one of the world's largest energy producers. Okay, they produce most of the world's oil and natural gas, and they have a commodities exchange there now that is just being set up that is going to settle all of those transactions in rubles. They're doing away with the U.S. dollar as a world form of payment. And it's not just Russia. China was doing it before Russia, before the Ukraine event started. China was signing deals with all sorts of nations, bypassing the U.S. dollar and using the yuan as a form of payment.
Talking about Russia, we were talking about the Ukraine. We were talking about the fact that the United States is forcing Putin's hand. And this is sort of a domino effect where you have one action that creates tens of millions of different unintended consequences. And that is exactly what we're doing here. And it's you're not even hearing it from, quote, conspiracy sources. We're talking about the Financial Times, and we're talking about Time Life magazine. And both of them have pointed out, for Time Life in particular, that this is Putin's dream, and we're helping him realize his dream. All the while, I think, there's much deeper and underlying circumstances, and I think, and perhaps it has to do with the fact that the dollar is going to crater anyway, and perhaps it has to do with the fact that there's going to be a new global currency sooner rather than later. And this happens to be a perfect implausible scenario to blame it on. But at the end of the day, what you have is a world that is readying itself to do business without the need for the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. And guys, this is something that we've been warning about for a while. I'm probably preaching to the choir as far as a dollar replacement and a complete and total possible collapse of the dollar. Most of you guys already know this, but the fact is many of us, and I'm sure that you have heard it from your friends and relatives. I've heard it from my friends and relatives. Many of us have been warning about this for years, if not decades. And everyone, including people within our own movement, and including people, clients of mine who have the same mindset as me, keep saying, well, when is this going to happen? When is this big crash and collapse of the economy going to happen? And I'm here to tell you, folks, it's happening now, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. It's sort of like Catherine Austin Fitts calls it, it's a slow burn. This economy is up in flames, but it's burning slowly. It's sort of like Ernest Hemingway wrote in one of his books. He asked one of his characters in his book, how did you go bankrupt? And his response was, very slowly at first, and then very quickly. And that's what's happening. This has been such a slow thing that has been carried out over years and decades. Many of us have either been rocked to sleep or we've been chastised by our friends and neighbors telling us that we're being alarmist, that when is this collapse going to happen? When is this crash going to happen? Well, guess what, folks? The Financial Times came out today, said China is the world's leading economy. They're the world's largest economy. It's finally official. It's finally been admitted. Time Life came out today and said that the U.S. is helping Russia reach its dream of a new financial world. And that is, in fact, what is happening right here in front of us. They've set up deals with Venezuela, China, India, Brazil. It goes on. And it's not just Russia. China is doing it as well. China, the People's Bank of China announced last week that they're going to set up a global payment system for the yuan. And they're going to make gold and oil futures denominated in yuan. This is huge because the world runs on oil. Whenever oil starts to be traded in other currencies other than the dollar is when you start to see the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar, hence the name of the report that we put out on March 26th. And that's why it's so important, guys, for you to get to our website, fill out, you'll see right on the left-hand side a banner that says, "Why is China hoarding gold?" If you click on that report, put in your information, we'll give you the report for free immediately right there on our website. But more importantly, you'll get our reports first. And from here on out, you'll be the first people to be notified. And, you know, I like to take credit whenever credit is due, and I have to say that the report that we put out on March 26th sounds a lot like the Financial Times today on April 30th. And it sounds a lot like Time Life magazine that came out today or possibly yesterday on April 29th. You would have had that information 30 days ahead of time. And the funny thing is that those people who believe that everything's good in the United States and the U.S. economy is heading in the right direction, those are the people who claimed that report was out of line because the Chinese economy hadn't passed the U.S. and that was alarmist in nature. We don't normally get any negative feedback, but we actually had two people that said both of those things. And Time Life magazine and the Financial Times today have vindicated both of those claims. So, like I said, you guys will be the first to know and the first ones to see our information. All you have to do is sign up for our reports. It's absolutely free. And I have to say, a lot of times you're going to get stuff way ahead of where you might get it elsewhere. Feel free to give us a call. Like I said, you can even call in tonight at the radio show. I'd love to answer some of your questions. And any time that you have any question whatsoever, feel free to call our main number. It's 1-800-928-6468. We've got specials going right now, all sorts of different things. All you have to do is call. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you mention the Wide Awake News radio network because we're going to offer you an introductory price. We'd like to get your business, and we'd like to get you owning some gold and silver. And that's the thing. In that particular aspect, as I said, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but all of us, including myself, has that little stash of money somewhere that just isn't protected, that's been kind of put away, that isn't really working for you. It may be in a 401k from a job that you changed several years ago. You may have money in an IRA that's sitting in stocks. You know, we do precious metals IRA. It's not something that we always recommend because you're not able to take delivery, but it is something that we normally will do. And if it's the last option, I can help you with an IRA, and Austin Rare Coins has great expertise in that particular area. In fact, we have an entire page on our website devoted to that. But the point being is if you're not ready, it's time to get ready. And thank God that we have these few months in order to prepare for what's coming down the pipe. Gabe Elton here with Austin Rare Coin and Bullion, back with Charlie McGrath, Wide Awake News broadcast, and also on the one and only Rents Radio Network. Just wanted to invite you guys back to the show. Like I said, we are accepting phone calls. All you have to do is give us a ring. We'll be glad to get you out and get your questions answered. So we left off where you have the United States sort of forcing Putin's hand. We have deals being made all over the United States, all over the world, doing away with the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. And then when you turn on CNBC or Fox Business News or any of the talking heads regarding the stock markets, everything seems fine. The Federal Reserve came out today. They decided to continue their taper. They tapered another $10 billion per month. Now they're only buying $50 billion per month of U.S. bonds, and things are hunky-dory. In fact, their response for their press release today was that things are so good that they're just going to continue their tapering. And in fact, it was their shortest release that they've made in quite some time. And basically, they said things are great. Well, that's just not the case. I don't know if you've looked at your neighbors, or I don't know if you've talked to your friends, but things aren't great. And I think people that are listening to this show know better. And the fact is, things are worse than they were back in 2007. Things have gotten so out of hand. The debt has exploded to such a degree that it's impossible to repay. Yet, you hear people saying that things couldn't be better. You have the stock market going through the roof, right? If that's the only judge of economic activity, if that's the only judge of how households are doing is the stock market, well then, we can all go home. Austin Rare Coins can close its doors. Forget buying gold and silver because things are great, right? Well, wrong. And you can look at that by just looking at the exuberance of the stock market. They had a poll not so long ago where they polled, I don't know, the nation's top 30 economists talking about where the economy was and as far as their confidence in this continuing. And I think for the first time ever, all participants said that there is no way the economy is going to contract, that it's only going to grow. And let me tell you, folks, whenever you hear something like that, run for the hills, because consensus is a killer. And the consensus is that you can't go wrong in the stock market today. And when you have everyone on the same side of the boat, that's right before it starts to sink. So let's take a closer look at the stock markets and see where it's at. Well, for the first time since 2007, U.S. stocks are trading at a PE ratio of 15.2 times earnings. Do you know what that means, guys, whenever you have an entire index that's trading at 15.2 times earnings? That means at this current rate of growth, if you buy a stock, it's going to take you 15 years to get your money back. 15 years of profits to equal the value of the stock that you just purchased. And this is the first time that it's been so high since 2007. And I'm sure all of you guys remember what happened in 2007. And aren't our memories so short? The funny thing is most of the people that I talked to got out of the stock market in 2007, 8, or 9, and they've been out ever since. Now, a lot of them are kicking themselves because they missed the stock market, which basically has almost doubled from its lows. Well, that's okay, because all it is high-frequency trading, and all it is a Federal Reserve who is dumping millions and trillions, or I say millions as if that means something these days, trillions of dollars into the world economy, and everyone's just drunk on the punch drunk, I should say. And here we are in a situation where things have not gotten better, they've gotten worse. The banks are bigger than they were before, and the real estate bubble is beginning to get worse than it was in 2007. There's something that I had in mind in this show, and I'm glad I just recalled it, is that when I first met Shane McGuire, who is a head of global research for the Texas Retirement Service for teachers here in Texas, he came in and sort of gave a meeting to us. And basically what he did, he went up to the whiteboard and he drew two big circles. And he said, this is the housing market. In the other circle, he said, this is the stock market. And then he put a dot on the board. It was a little bitty dot, and he said, this dot represents subprime. Well, that was the first time I had ever heard of subprime. This was before any network had ever talked about subprime mortgages. And he said, do you see that dot? And he said, this dot is going to take down these two huge global markets. And, we were kind of shaking our heads. And I remember even back then getting on the phone and talking to clients about it and, not really understanding the severity of what he mentioned. And it turns out that little dot almost took down the whole world economy. Well, guess what? We're there again, except now it's been inflated by 200 or 300%. And now we've got a stock market that is built on nothing but funny money created by the Federal Reserve. And sooner or later, that's going to end, and I happen to believe it's going to be sooner rather than later. If you look at housing, the exact same thing today is going on that went on in 2007. And folks, by the way, the information that I'm giving you here is going to be in my next report. So if you want all of this information and data in front of you, make sure to go to our website, austincoins.com. Make sure to sign up for the updates, and you'll be the first to get it in your inbox. But this is material and data that I've been putting back for the next report that I'm going to write, and I'm thinking maybe the headline is going to be entitled "History Repeating," because that's exactly what we're seeing in the housing market. You can look at the charts. I wish I had video to show you. You can look at the charts from 2007 until today in housing, and it looks exactly the same as it did then. We've got a lot of figures. For instance, in the first quarter of 2014, mortgage originations at Citigroup declined 71%. Do you understand what that means? So here we have a bubble that's been blown up by the Fed, and we are in a situation where if this thing craters, it's going to be worse than it was back in 07 and 08. And the signs of it cratering are slapping us in the face. Mortgage originations at Citigroup are down 71% from first quarter 2014 compared to first quarter 2013. At JP Morgan and Chase, it's down 68%. The first quarter of 2014 from the same period a year ago. This is signs of a complete and total collapse. But if you listen to Janet Yellen and if you listen to CNBC, things are so great that they're able to taper another $10 billion and only buy $54 billion worth of bonds each and every quarter. That is something that I don't think represents an economy that's in good shape. Another thing is consumer credit. Even though loan and mortgage originations are down 71 and 68%, consumer credit is through the roof. And during the fourth quarter of 2013, of last year, at the end of last year, we witnessed the biggest increase of consumer debt that the U.S. has ever seen since, guess when, 2007. And it's risen by 22% over the last 3 years. And talking about subprime, that little dot on the board that could take down the two much larger dots, as in housing and the stock market, subprime, well, 56% of all Americans are now considered subprime credit at this point. And I don't know if there's anything else out there that can tell you more than what we're seeing in the world, with the whole rest of the world doing away with the U.S. dollar as a major payment system. The cracks in the U.S. economy are starting to show, especially in housing. And as I stated before, if you have not started to prepare yourself, now is the time to do it. If you know people that haven't prepared themselves, now is the time to do it. Guys, I was buying silver at $37 an ounce. It's $19 an ounce today. We've been wrong for quite a while, but I would thank your lucky stars that you have a few months left, maybe a few years, but I doubt it, to be able to buy gold and silver at these low prices, because what's coming is going to be much worse than what we've been through. All right, Gabe Elton of Austin Rare Coin and Bullion back as your guest here on Charlie McGrath's Wide Awake radio show on the one and only Rinse Radio Network. Glad to be back again. And again, this is my maiden show. We've had a little technical difficulties along the way. And by the way, that was on my end, not Rinse Radio Network. Having a slow internet connection tonight. In fact, the music came on right as I was sending my tech guys an email. Hopefully in the future it'll be a little smoother. But kind of recapping what we've talked about so far is number one, you've got to get to our website, austincoins.com, and sign up for our reports. The way that you're able to do that is you can go to our homepage. On the left-hand side, you'll see a banner there that says, why is China hoarding gold? If you click on that banner, fill out the fields there, it'll bring you directly to the report, and you will be in our system to be the first to receive these reports. They're absolutely free. And as I said, the one that we sent out last was on March 26th, entitled, Is This the Beginning of the End of the U.S. Dollar? And as I said, we had some feedback that some of it was a little negative. There was actually only 2 people that commented, and both of them said, one of them, actually both of them said, well, there's no way the Chinese economy is bigger than the U.S. economy. And this is information that I'd already picked up from a former IMF economist in a report, said that China passed the U.S. in 2010. So basically, I had already knew that this news was going to come out because it was based on purchasing power parity. Well, of course, once again, we were proven right when the Financial Times came out today and announced that China just passed the U.S. as the world's largest economy. Another thing is, another, I guess, theme amongst these, the 2 people that I had feedback from was, this is sort of alarmist because Russia doesn't mean anything. I mean, the U.S. is never going to accept payment in oil for rubles. Well, of course they aren't, but the rest of the world is going to do away with using the U.S. dollar, which was the whole point of the report, is the U.S., with the situation in the Ukraine, is cutting off its nose to spite its face. And sure enough, Time Life magazine came out and vindicated us once again today, saying that these sanctions are going to help Putin realize a lifelong dream where the U.S. doesn't dominate the world financial centers. And that is happening, and it's happening quickly, and it's going to continue, and it's going to get worse. And unless you do something now to protect yourself and your family, the time is running out. And when I say time is running out, what I'm saying is you're going to be able to buy gold and silver in the coming months and maybe even years, but it's my opinion that you're going to be paying much, much higher prices for that gold and silver. And thank God that we have a chance to buy silver below $20. Thank God that we have a chance to buy gold below $1,400, because to us, it's a gift. To China, it's a gift. They don't care what the price of gold is. They just buy every bit of it that they can. Why are they doing that? Because they want the yuan to be a major player on the world reserve currency stage. Guess who they've signed deals with? Russia. Guess what else Russia is doing? They're creating a commodities exchange within their own country that has to be settled in rubles. They're creating deals with Iran where it's an oil for goods program worth $20 billion. They've set up deals with India, and as I stated in the report, the rest of the world no longer needs us. And as I mentioned here in the show, you've got a group of people that I'm sure most of you that are listening are very like-minded, and like I said, I might even be preaching to the choir. However, there are some of us even within this own movement who keep saying, when is this going to happen? I know there's friends and relatives that you're talking to who keep saying, when is this going to happen? Well, folks, it is happening. It's happening right in front of us, and it's not even a conspiracy. It's mainstream news. It's mainstream news. And, this thing that all of us have been warning about for years and decades, it's right here in front of us, and it's happening right now. And it's funny how the report before the report regarding the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar that we sent out, it had to do with 2014 being a tremendous, important turning point in the gold and silver markets, but really, and more importantly, it was a turning point within how the rest of the world interacts with the U.S. And we talked about Jim Willey and we talked about John Williams. Jim Willie runs a website. He calls himself the Golden Jackass. Many of you have probably heard of him. He has a PhD in statistics. He claims, and he claimed this, by the way, before this Ukraine incident ever started, probably in November of last year, that in 2014 we would see the whole world financial system change, and that the U.S. dollar would no longer be the world reserve currency, and that trade amongst nations will be settled in a currency other than dollars. He even claims that that currency is going to include a portion of its backing by gold and silver. He also claims that in order for that gold to be backed by this new currency, that gold would have to be $7,500 an ounce, silver would have to be $250 an ounce, and he says that it's happening this year. Now, you tie that in with what China is doing, you tie that in with what Russia is doing, and you tie that in with John Williams, probably one of the most reserved guys that you'll ever read or hear talk. John Williams happens to be another guy who has a PhD in statistics, and he claims that hyperinflation will start in the United States this year. Now, the difference between me and John Williams and the difference between me and Jim Willie is I don't have the heart to tell you that it's going to happen this year. And it's not because I'm afraid, it's because I don't know. I've been early plenty of times. But I tell you what, if I was a subscription-based newsletter writer who writes about finance, I don't know if I would have the gumption, for lack of a better word, to put a date, an expiration date on something. Well, guess what? Jim Willie has put an expiration date on the U.S. dollar. John Williams has put an expiration date on the U.S. dollar, and the expiration is this year. And both of those forecasters, they make a living from people who pay a subscription service to financial newsletters. Now, what does that mean? Either they're right, and everyone's going to realize what great knowledge that both of these people have, or they're wrong, and they're going to go into early retirement because they put a date on it. And it's not just John Williams and Jim Willie. If you've got to look at things from the big picture, and you've got to look at what's happening behind the scenes. And this Ukraine deal, I think, is going to prove to be the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar. It's going to force nations to cooperate amongst each other without using the U.S. dollar. And it's like cutting off our nose to spite our face. And that's what the U.S. has been famous for over the last decade or more. And all that we can do is have people like those that listen to this show, is let others know and sign up for our newsletters. Be one of the first people to get this. We put an awful lot of research into this. As a matter of fact, I printed the research that I've done so far for the next report in order to come onto this show, and it was 27 pages of information. Now, what I do is I scour through that information and pull out the most important points, and I try to put together a story of how it all fits together, because it does. And that's one thing that we're extremely good at, is putting together the bigger picture to kind of give you a concise view of what's happening. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not a good forecaster, and that's one of the reasons why I won't put a date on things, because I look at things through a wider lens. I try not to focus on any specific thing, but try to find out how it relates to other things. And that leads us to be able to put together reports that are very timely, and reports where some might have scoffed at originally are now being proven true over and again by mainstream media outlets like the Financial Times, like Time Life. It's happening, folks, and if you don't get to our website, if you don't have the majority of your savings, now I'm not talking about food supplies or weapons or ammunition or water, I think that's the most important thing. But once you've done that, if you've got if you've got money rat-holed somewhere, whether it be in an IRA or 401k or in a safety deposit box or in a bank, you really should reconsider and give us a call. You can call our main number, 1-800-928-6468. You can also visit our website, austincoins.com. Something that you'll find at our website, like I said, first of all, I would make it a point to sign up for our reports, but also you're going to find something there called the Learning Center. If you go to the Learning Center, I have a section there in the Learning Center where I write a lot of the reports in that particular section, and it's stuff that's different than our market reports. The market reports, I think, are kind of a timely information about the world finance situation, whereas on our Learning Center, you can find more about coins. Some of the titles, one of them I think is actually wrapped around a show I did with Charlie. It's called The 3 Types of Gold and Silver Buyers. And it compares people who are just concerned with stacking gold and silver compared to others who have found ways to increase their holdings without having to buy more metal. Well, stackers will never get to that point. But if you read the article, The 3 Types of Gold and Silver Buyers, you'll find out how there's lots of different ways to do this, and most times, if you haven't talked to a company like ours, you might be going down the wrong road there. We have another report, Will Gold Be Confiscated? I've done a tremendous amount of studying on this particular aspect. In fact, if anybody has any questions about gold confiscation, feel free to give us a call. You can speak with me directly. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. I really looked at it in a historical standpoint, and that's basically what we're here for, is to help you guys. Feel free to visit our website, give us a call, mention Wide Awake News, and we'll get you a better price than what you've seen elsewhere. Thanks as always, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.